Hello and welcome to another episode of Naked Truths, brought to you by Naked Dog. So today we are here with Chris Kent from the Canine Project, and we are going to be talking about the truth behind dogs and mental health. What a huge subject. We know COVID has shown us, really, and the fact we were locked down with our dogs. We know how supportive it can be to own a dog and to be with a dog and to have to care for a dog during the time of lockdown. And they've really proven that they're right there by our side as our friends now, and never more have they been part of the family and supportive in terms of mental health and emotional health. Now, Chris, you were doing this kind of work. You were rescuing and I don't know, we're not keen on that word, rescue particularly, are we? But you were taking on dogs from shelters, and you were working with kids and teenagers with your dogs way before all this started. So you knew, you could almost predict that these dogs would be supportive to us throughout COVID.
Yes, very, very much. And on Canine, we've been running for kind of 13, nearly 14 years now. And we've always used dogs. We've always shared our lives with dogs from shelters, rescue centres of different sorts. And so when we thought about setting up the project, because my husband's helped me set it up initially, there was never any doubt that we wouldn't use the dogs from shelters who've been homeless and had negative experiences. So there's something really powerful for young people who haven't had a good start about that metaphor as well. You know, here's a dog who hasn't had a good start. Hey, look, living their best life now. So if it's okay for the dogs, then we can do that well. It might take a bit of work, like it does with some of the dogs, and a bit of love and care, and it may take longer. But if we can get dogs that have experienced this and they can live in the moment and get on with their best life, then so can you. So that's how we kind of started from that point of view. And we've had 15 different dogs that have been involved in the project kind of over those years, that have all done something very different. And obviously alongside all of that, they're still our family. So they're still our family dogs. They're not working dogs, and I don't train them particularly. We can talk about that a bit later, but I don't train them particularly to do certain things in order to do the work. The whole point of it is their dogness, if you like, their kind of difference to us, but also their similarities. So yeah, and COVID highlighted for me, yeah, how much people have. We all know loads of people went out and bought dogs. We also know that many of those people are now not keeping those dogs, so that's another kind of issue. And I think lots of new people have been open to the experience of sharing their life with a dog and fully realising the impact on our emotional well-being and our mental health, really. So
Absolutely.
Sorry, that's my phone ringing because it shouldn't be on.
In demand this early in the morning. So 13 plus years that this work's been happening, Canine Project's been happening. And I know that you've been very, very busy. It's essentially been your full-time job. I'll let you. Yeah.
Originally, I worked part-time at it, kind of had another job, and then gradually it took over and has become, I mean, it's pretty much what I do full-time now. And apart from the COVID interlude, has probably been full-time for, 6 years, 7 years now. So.
Okay, and you apply for funds, if I remember correctly. You apply for funds and you work with communities. So it's partly local community-based projects that you're working with. Tell us a bit more about what actually happens within the Canine Project.
Okay, so over the years we've run a lot of different projects, and I guess one of the ones that I kind of like the best, if you like, is a Canine Community Cafe, and that came out. We run a project through European social funding for adults that were out of work, and we're actually quite a long way away from the workplace. So we developed a program where we worked alongside our dogs, building people's confidence, practicing interview skills, learning about body language and all of that, but using the dogs. And then when the funding ran out, because we were a non-profit then, so the funding runs out and you've ticked your boxes and everyone kind of says, okay, that's it, let them all go, they're all going to go and do whatever else they're going to do. And people were just not ready for that. They'd made a lot of steps, but they weren't ready to just, so we just set up a drop-in initially for people that we knew who were kind of waiting, still not ready to go and either get a job or volunteer, but still needed support. So we set up a drop-in for them, which eventually became, for 9 years, it became a community cafe where the people who came to it originally then ran it with my support, and everyone was a volunteer. And we just used to get lots of people coming in, either with their dogs or people who love dogs, but for whatever reason couldn't have one. And there are loads of those people out there as well. So people would come in for their kind of dog fix and their little well-being boost on a Thursday morning. So we are, and because after a few years, we didn't get any funding for that. We were just a little community group. And that was really hard. But the best thing about it was we didn't have to tick someone else's boxes. So I didn't have to take registers. I didn't have to set targets. You know, it was just literally, you guys come in and have a cheap cup of tea or coffee. We'd still charge you a bit because we've got to pay for the room. And the volunteers ran it. And we had people with dementia, people with learning difficulties. We had the local old people's homes coming in and bringing their residents in because they love seeing the dogs. And that then led to conversations about the dogs they'd had as younger people and in their families. And we had young people running it. So we'd have another little group of young people, and then we'd have parents with their children coming in as well. And most of those children were had additional needs, had special educational needs. So either autism or ADHD or some other kind of challenge, really, which meant that they weren't always at school, which is why they could come in to us. So, and sadly, that project is now closed. Because we lost our venue over COVID, and then we lost a few volunteers, so we can't get another venue at the moment. So we're meeting at another social enterprise which is run by people with learning difficulties. We meet there once a month, and yeah, so we still keep in touch, but it's not the same, not a weekly drop-in. But I guess since COVID in particular, the biggest part of my work has been working with young people who are so anxious about everything. So they don't leave the house. So many of them don't leave the house without a parent, and sometimes they don't even leave the house with a parent. Many of them have got dogs because they think that the dog will be able to help the young person get out. Doesn't work. You know, it's not always quite that simple. So the things that you and I know we appreciate our dogs for, because they do make you get out, you're in the fresh air, you're kind of meeting other people through our love of dogs and all of that. Families sometimes buy dogs, think that's going to happen, and it doesn't. All it means is mum has another job. Right. And normally I go around to those houses and the mum are like, oh my God, I don't know what I would have done without whatever the dog is called. You know, I got the dog for my child, but actually she saved my life this last 18 months. So, you know, it's boosting the parents' mental health and well-being, even if it's not made a big change for the young people. But my task is to get in there and try and persuade them to come out with mum, their dog, my dogs, whoever, and just build their confidence very gradually while we're learning techniques to reduce anxiety at the same time, but all in a very kind of casual, informal, dog-focused way.
Now, I can remember many years ago, you were working with a group of young individuals in Cambridge, and you had a different set of dogs. I think you've lost some of those now. And there was some training involved. So you were teaching the dogs, you were teaching the young individuals to train the dogs, and this was supporting them to feel more confident about life. That always stuck with me, that, you know, these dogs, as you said, they're not actually trained as therapy dogs, but yet the interactive part of it, the bonding with the dog, this really supported those kids. And I'm sure you told me success stories about them going off to make changes in their life after the work you've done.
Yes, very, very, very much so. And over the years, we've had people that have made huge changes. You know, some people kind of say that without the project, and then maybe getting their own dog, for the older young people, that might have been true. You know, they're not sure that they'd even be here, but that's like really major in you know, mental health kind of issues. And we've worked with a lot of young people with very complex medical and mental health needs on a much kind of low-key level, but equally as important and as vital is just that having a dog. One young person said to me once about Cassie, who was very much our go-to dog in those days, and he said, I never thought that anything that beautiful would ever want to be with me or would ever do what I asked her to do. So for him, it was about having some control and like, yeah, he had a treat. She'd do anything for anyone. But, you know, you don't tell him that. Because for him, that confidence boost was, she just wants to be with me and she follows me. And if I ask her to sit, she sits. And he in particular, we kind of stayed in touch with him long while after our intervention, but sort of 5 years later, he still very much remembered Cassie and had pictures of her plastered all over his wall at home. And he used to say goodnight to her every night at a time when he didn't have anyone else to say goodnight to, really. So, you know, so very, very hugely powerful. And it doesn't have to be their dog. And I think that's the bit that people didn't really get to start with. It doesn't have to be their dog. It can be anybody's dog. But for us, it's always been a bit more than a kind of a therapy dog, which just sits around and looks wonderful and, you know, puts their head on your lap. And there's nothing, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. That's wonderful. But I always wanted to do more because the young people learn from the dogs. So it's kind of helpful if the dogs are not perfectly behaved, because most of the young people we work with are not perfectly behaved and they'll all have issues. So our kind of Cyprus rescues, they're really good for demonstrating a little bit of nervousness and anxiety, because although they love coming out, they do worry about certain things. So you can talk about the dog's worry and how we can help the dog. And then you can almost just open the door to going, so how about you? Like, what helps you? You know, so it's not like someone's sitting down and asking them loads of questions. And of course, they've got the dog there. So that makes the whole thing easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry, Foos is walking around here. I think she knows.
I've come upstairs, so my dogs are out of the way. Otherwise, it would be chaos, sadly.
I remember you had quite a selection of dogs in the Cassie days, and you had Taz as well, and he was a Mastiff, and
Mastiff cross Rottweiler, yeah,
and I mean he was also one of your go-to dogs, I think, wasn't he, at the time?
Yeah, he was awesome. And we were working, you know, we've had to change the project in a way because the dogs are the center of it. It's like what they can do almost dictates what we can do, because we never, you know, the whole key thing about mental health, emotional well-being is if the dog's needs are not being met, it would be wrong to expect them to meet humans. And I think that's true in families as well as in the work we do. And we had Taz, who was a Mastiff cross Rottweiler, and we had Ruby, who was a Staffy cross, quite a big Staffy cross. And at that time, we were working quite a lot with secure units, young people in trouble with the police. They really related to those dogs, you know, in a way that they wouldn't have related if I'd had a little cute fluffy dog. They would have still liked them, but we wouldn't have been able to have discussed the same issues about stereotyping and not being judged by the way you look and the things that you do. So, and Taz was just awesome. He did like nursery visits and dribbled all over 4-year-olds who were just about kind of head height. But one young man said to us that once I'd walked him, I kind of felt like I could do anything.
Wow.
So just walking a big dog calmly and quietly, and actually Taz was probably one of the better trained dogs we had because he was big, you know, we'd probably trained him quite a little bit more at that time, not to do anything special, just not to pull people over really or jump up. But that, you know, that young man said, once I walked him, everything changed. Because I just realized that I could do anything. If I could do that and I was frightened of him and I could still do it, then I could do anything. And he went on from doing absolutely nothing in school other than sitting in the back, not talking, to doing stand-up comedy and writing songs, and just like, yeah, just totally blossomed, really.
Wow, that's really powerful.
Yes, yeah, it was.
And so, I mean, it's fantastic, because what's happening is the dogs they're the conversation point, aren't they?
Yes.
They are,
Yeah.
for people to open up a bit and talk more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, one little boy said to me once, like on the second session in his school, he just said, "These sessions are so much easier, miss, with the dogs here. I don't know why, but they just are." So, you know, they're aware of it, you know, and obviously we're using that in a very subtle way, but they don't feel judged, and the dogs are not perfect, so therefore they don't have to be perfect either, you know. So another one, somebody who met, who worked with both Taz and with Izzy, who's our little like hyperactive dog, so she used to work with a lot of children with ADHD. One of the boys said, through working with Izzy, I've realized that I can be crazy and lovable, because she is, and with working with Taz, I've realized that I don't actually have to use all of my strength. Like, it's okay to have it, but I don't need to be using it all the time. And I was like, wow, that's really quite powerful stuff that I would never have thought of. So that's the great thing. The young people see what they need to see. And the dogs are very much door openers. And we all know that. If we've got dogs and we go out for a walk, we talk to people in the street, everybody knows your dog's name, nobody knows who you are, but you know, you form relationships with people around the dogs. And I always think the dogs open the door, and then if I can get my timing right, I can step on through behind them and maybe do my little bit of useful stuff, really. But the dogs are the door opener. And I know many young people speak to me and agree to sessions with me because I've got dogs. Like, they would, if it was just me walking around like another professional going, "Hello, let's have a chat," they'd be like, "Yeah, no, thanks."
Yeah. Okay. Oh, it's amazing the work that you do. It really is. It is amazing.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
the fact that your shelter dogs are going with you as well, and it's representing shelter dogs and how wonderful they can be, you know, taking down maybe some myths about shelter dogs, because these shelter dogs are doing wonderful, wonderful work, and you know, their traits and their personalities are going alongside with that. So tell us a bit more about Cassie, because you have won many awards for the work that you've done. Have you got any photos of Cassie there? Probably, haven't you? I can see your horses.
I've got mostly horses in here. Yeah, no, I'm not sure I have. I should have bought one. I'll tell you what. I'll find one in the book. So Cassie was an RSPCA dog. So that one was Ruby. That was the stash. She was used as a breeding dog. And at the time when, we were taking a lot of pit bull types away, we still are, but it reached a bit of a peak. So she was an ambassador for bull breeds, really, and to show people that bull breeds could be as beautiful as any other dogs, really. So let me see if I can find
that photo's on your book. Do you want to just also tell us a bit about the books, because they could?
Oh yeah, so this is one of our books, which is called Hound to Heel, and I self-published this through Caroline's company ages ago, many years ago, and then someone picked it up and offered me what I call a posh publishing contract, really. So I went for that. Kind of almost wish I hadn't, really, but anyway, because they changed the pictures, but it looks good, and it meant that we could afford to get it out with color pictures and professional layout and all of that. So I was very grateful for that, because it's quite rare to get a contract when you've kind of published it kind of yourself. So I was really pleased with that. So but yeah, the picture on the front is so not what we do. We didn't have a Chihuahua at the time, and yeah, but anyway, artistic stuff. They know what they're doing. These people know what they're doing. So this is Cassie, if you can see there. So this is Cassie up the top here, and Cassie at the bottom. And Cassie meeting Ben Fogel at a National Pet Award. So she won some Animal Hero Award with the National Super Dog. So she won a Super Dog Award at the National Pet Show a few years back. She sadly died of cancer when she was way too young, but she was she was thrown out of a moving car when she was 12 weeks old, and taken into the RSPCA. And yeah, the young people always used to go, oh no, you know, because it's wrong, isn't it, to throw little puppies out of car windows. But to be honest, Cassie was our resilience model, and that's kind of how I use the dogs. They're not victims, they're models of resilience that can change things. Because actually in the RSPCA place, she was as happy as anything. She was surrounded by people. She didn't much like other dogs. She never really much like, she thought she was a person, I'm pretty sure, really. But she was quite happy in the RSPCA kennel, full of love, full of joy, full of fun. And she was just like that for her whole life, really, up until, you know, the very, very last moment. She was still going into schools 3 weeks before she died. So because she was fit enough, well enough, healthy enough, and wanted to do it. So wouldn't have dreamed of doing it otherwise. But she just loved people, like any people. And if you were walking along somewhere, I remember walking her along once and she was off the lead, and there was a little group of old people's bungalows, and it wasn't on a road, it was kind of just on a little side thing. And she just disappeared and shot up the path and went in this person's kitchen. And I'm like, oh my God. And the woman come out with her little walking frame. She went, oh, it's so lovely. She's come to visit me. I used to have dogs and now I'm not allowed to have them. But there was like 8 bungalows, but she just went in this one particular one. And she just gravitated towards people who needed her to, really. So she was really, really good. And when we lost her for a while, I was a bit like, can we get through this? Can we still run the project without her? Because the other dogs, you know, dogs don't live long enough, do they? None of them live long enough, really, for any of us. So, getting a bit upset. So we just had to get more, really. So, you know, along came another bunch, really, which is why we've always got somewhere between 4 and 6 dogs, because that's the other thing. If I'm working full time, I wouldn't expect one dog to do all of that. Sometimes it can be tiring. You have to find what they like. And you have to keep them emotionally happy. For Cassie, being out all day and being with people, and at the cafe, she was the only dog who was allowed off lead. And she used to, every time someone came in, she'd trot over, welcome to my cafe, it's my deal, come in, say hello. So she was the meet and greet, and she didn't bother talking to the other dogs, she just ignored them. But like people, she was like, yeah. And then you just find her going to sit by different people at different times. So yeah, the cafe was hers, really.
Yeah. Yes. No, I was very privileged to meet her.
Yeah.
So hers.
Yes, we came to one of your retreats, didn't we? Yeah.
Absolutely did. Yeah. Wow. So her story, Cassie's story, and many of the other stories are in the Hounds That Heal book. Is that the only?
Yes.
Is that the only book?
No, I've got a few others. So Izzy, who's she's our ADHD consultant, really. If people, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, which is a horrible name for young people. So Izzy wrote a book to help young people with ADHD. So children and young people, called You, Me and ADHD. And the whole point of the book is that she helps young people, because we were running family groups at the time. She helps young people see the positives in ADHD and not just feel like they were excluded from school, because a lot of kids with ADHD never get invited to parties or friendship groups or anything like that, because they can be quite full on. And Izzy was full on. So so we made a whole new definition of ADHD, which is active, delightful and highly determined. So it's it's a kind of activity book, so children don't have to sit and read it, but they can draw and do exercises.
Good resource. Really good.
Yeah, it is a good resource. Yeah, it is good. But unfortunately, that was published just before COVID lockdown, the first one. And I had a whole series of parents' workshops booked and sessions in schools, and the whole lot just went out. And I've never really managed to pick it up again. But it's okay, because she's writing another one now called You, Me and Anxiety.
Okay.
But the other dogs are helping with that. And that's going to be a bit more general and a bit more current, if we can ever finish it. And then I didn't write this one, but we we got some money. A school sent us some money for the cafe. So I thought it would be good to use that for something a little bit educational or creative. So we ran a short story competition where everybody kind of won, really. And people who'd never been published could send stories in, and then we just kind of then we just kind of published people's stories and drawings and pictures of their dogs. And so I collated that, but I didn't write it. Oh, and there's another one. So we also wrote, I did this with another colleague of mine, with a friend who is much better at the business side of what we do than I am. So we wrote a book basically to help anyone who wanted to set up a kind of business or a charity doing this work, because I'm always inundated with people who think they want to do this because it seems a very easy and a very worthwhile thing to do. So we write a kind of coaching book where she covered the business side of it. And well, it was a bit like one of those books that I kind of thought, I wish I'd read that before I started. It was kind of a list of all the things I didn't quite manage to do, but nonetheless still managed to, what's that quote about taking a leap and finding your wings on the way down? Yeah, that's kind of what I did. But it's not a coincidence I work with children and young people with ADHD, because you just kind of go, yeah, let's do that, let's go for it, see how it works. So
yeah, well, you have got a lot of faith, and you're very grounded as well, and understanding. So you've got the quality as well to carry the Canine project forward, really. So it's no wonder all these awards as well. You've got another one coming up, haven't you?
I have got another one coming up. Yeah. We've won awards for adult education. We've won awards for youth work, community work. Cassie's won a superhero dog. He's just recently, just a few weeks ago, got a PDSA commendation for her support work with young people, because she's beginning to slow down a bit now, so I don't take her out on many sessions, much to her disgust, because she would like to come out, but sometimes they're a bit tiring. And I've won, I haven't been presented with this yet, so I can't talk too much about it, but I have won the Daily Mirror Animal Hero from their inaugural Pet Awards. They used to run some awards called Animal Hero Awards. I think they've changed them to the Pet Awards, because the People's Pet Awards. And so it's not for working dogs as such, it's for people's pets who do amazing things. So I've won the human category of that, apparently. So
yeah, well done.
Thank you. That's a huge honour, and it's a bit big, and I feel a bit humble because there are so many people out there that do so many things for dogs, but for animals of all sorts, not just dogs. However, I think what they liked was that it was the rescue dogs working to help young people in trouble, really, of one sort or another, young people that are experiencing challenges, and an acknowledgement that the rescue dogs, like, I don't like the word, but yeah, the dogs' lives are enhanced by the work that they do, as well as the young people's. And for me, that's always been really key. Sometimes I see things and I'm like, is that really right for the dog? And I know you and I have talked about this before, Caroline, and dogs are willing volunteers to lots of things, but I have a bit of a line and I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure I feel comfortable with that. It might be comfortable for other people, but the dog's emotional well-being has to be at the center of all of it, and their physical health as well, obviously. So
yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, you raw feed. You have always raw fed your dogs.
Yeah. Ever since raw feeding has been like a thing that we knew about, obviously many years ago, because I'm getting on a bit now, nobody raw fed their dogs. Basically, we gave them what was left on our plate, which was pretty much a bit of meat and maybe some potato or rice and vegetables. Funny that we've kind of come back there a bit, but yeah, we raw feed. And interestingly, I certainly don't call my dogs therapy dogs, because I'm not a qualified therapist. So they are more like coaching dogs. So we use them to coach young people to set goals and achieve things. But if they were therapy dogs and working for some of the other therapy dog organizations, they would not be allowed to be fed raw food.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I've heard this before. What a shame, though. you know, because
it is a shame. It is a shame. And I guess it's come from America originally, I think, from the research I've done, in terms of the fact, and I do understand, I guess, if you're going into a situation where people are clinically very vulnerable, so you're doing hospitals, you're doing children on cancer wards whose immune system is suppressed, there's this big fear that by having a dog that's raw fed, they could give the children salmonella.
It's again,
so that's what it's about. But you know, really they'd have to be licking them all over in order to pass it on, I think, is the reality. Do you know, it would, you know, the chances would be remote. But
I think anyway, we do have a Naked Truths on bacteria in dog food with Brendan Clark, Dr. Brendan Clark. But I also, anyone watching this that's got that concern, I think do watch that. But also on the Raw Pet Medics, Dr. Connor Brady talks about this a lot. You know, it is an overinflated fear. Yeah. What do you call it? False evidence appearing real. Do you remember this? Sandy Newbegin.
Yes. Yeah.
So false evidence appearing real, I think, because also they're licking from puddles. They are sniffing each other's bottoms. There's all sorts of bacteria that could be passed without food even playing a role.
Yes.
Not to mention the fact that we don't actually know if sterilised foods stay sterilised. Many times they don't. There have been many recalls on those as well. So, yeah, I think it is. That's worth thinking about as well. So, I mean, it's fantastic that you've been doing this as long as you have, and the dogs are representatives that doesn't happen. You know, we don't get that happening. So,
yeah. And I don't take them into hospitals, and I don't bath them every time before we do a session. They'd never be out of the bath, and a lot of therapy dogs that work for more formalized stuff, you have to sign a thing to say you're going to bath and groom the dog before you take them out. I might do three or four sessions in a day. We're outside, we're in the mud, they roll in fox poo, it's the reality of it that is partly the fun, because again, if they roll in fox poo, everyone can go, oh my god, that's dreadful, and the kids can go, the young people can go, well, I'm not touching it now, which is kind of a normal healthy reaction. But yeah, so yeah, and we do a lot of our sessions are outdoors, where you never know quite what you're going to find, really, or what they're going to try and eat or roll in, or and just like wash your hands before you eat.
Well, this is the thing, and I think
wash your hands.
It does. No wonder you get lots of people asking you how to do what you do, because this part of it, the fun dog part of it, it sounds like something that even I would be like, wow, let me come and help you. However, there's a lot of paperwork involved, and there is a lot of responsibility in this work. There's a lot of, I know you've been filling in, to the early hours, funding applications and all sorts. So I think that book that you showed us, The Human Animal Bond, would be really key for anyone interested in this sort of work. Where can people find your books? Are they on classic places?
Most are on Amazon or from me. So Hands Who Heal and Yumi and ADHD are both on Amazon. The others come from me. Also, if people wanted Yumi and ADHD, when Yumi and Anxiety comes out, then I'm going to do an offer. And we do lots of for like a little book bundle, really. So and Hounds Who Heal there's lots of really cheap ones on Amazon secondhand. So you can pick up books for nothing now, can't you?
canineproject.com or canineproject.co.uk. What's the website?
canineproject.co.uk. Yeah, www.canineproject.co.uk. Yeah,
fantastic. They will make lovely Christmas presents, because it's heartwarming, and that's what you want at Christmas. If you received this Christmas,
yes, I think, and I think Hounds Who Heal, people said they kind of laughed out loud reading it, and some people said they shed a tear as well. So, but that's life, isn't it? And that's mental health, emotional well-being. It's the whole thing. It's never one thing or the other. And our task is to try and create resilient young people, really, who can survive the ups and downs, and dogs who can also, develop resilience in enough of a way that they can cope with minor setbacks. Because, life's not always perfect for all of us, is it, really? And, we have to all make the best of things and have a positive focus and just move through it. And I think the dogs demonstrate that perfectly, really. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for chatting to us about all this. It's been really nice just to hear.
Thank you. I'm not sure we've answered the truth about mental health and dogs really, but we've talked about lots of things to do. It's such a huge subject, isn't it? I'm sure, I just hope it provokes discussions in other people to actually think about, because there's all the science, we can quote the science about how they do what they do, but actually it's sometimes better to just appreciate it and notice it and enjoy it, really. So
from the point of view that knowing that it doesn't have to be done specifically in a certain structured way, in a set way, I think this,
yes,
and this understanding that when you work with dogs, they're the conversation opener. They're not necessarily having certain tricks or certain things to make the changes for the young people's mental health. They're the conversation. They're the starter. So yeah, I hope that that's the truth we've kind of shown today in our chat as well. I mean, like you said, there are lots and lots of studies that can be researched and Googled and found out, but straight from the heart of your business, I think would have been tough to Google and find out. Only if you.
I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope everyone else enjoys it as well. So it's been great talking to you all, and yeah, don't be afraid to contact me, ask me any questions if anyone wants to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, right, well, thank you so much for watching this episode of Naked Truths, and as always, we will be back with more in the series. See you again.